Yeah, Reno P back with Conan to record another part. I shouldn't have said that. That gives away the magic. But anyways, we'll get right into it. What is your experience with the Magic the Gathering community in Vancouver as a whole? Good, bad?
As a whole, I think not too bad. I think that there's a pretty wide spectrum, but as a whole, I actually find them to be a lot more mature generally than I think a lot of the other like nerd kind of communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is because of sort of the environment that Wizards of the Coast tries to promote with Magic. I think the art is generally like very kind of like
the art style.
Yeah, as this part of it, they try to maintain like a mature culture.
Mm-hmm. Something like grim, but like mature.
Yeah, and in terms of like they engage with social issues in like I think kind of like an appropriate way. Another part of it I think is like, at least in like the competitive Magic, like the price of entry is very high.
Yeah.
So
for modern, right?
Yeah, so you have to be like pretty old to be able to afford to play.
There's a pay grade.
Yeah,
unless you're rich.
No, even when I play Pauper, it wasn't too bad. But there's definitely some people who are not so great, which are probably the ones you want to hear about.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, this is your perspective on it. Like, if it's great, then who am I to say, right? It's like here, obviously, there's always stories about any community, right?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely get sort of like, and I do think they're important to talk about, even while they are like a minority. The fact that they kind of exist, sort of says a lot about the community and is a huge part of what one's experience. Like even if you play against like 7 nice people at a tournament, and then you have like one asshole, will really hurt your experience, right?
It's weird how we're programmed like that. I find like that. Let's say you make a piece. Like, let's say I publish this episode, and I see like 7 great comments and that one terrible one.
Yeah,
that doesn't like it. Whether if it's constructive or not, or if it's like accurate or true, it's just that one. That's the one that gets to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of strange. How like 10 good things is like outweighed by one negative thing.
I mean, I think that's kind of. I hate to say human nature, but
it's like it's a programming there, right?
I'm sure there's like
some
kind of biological. If you see like a piece of meat that's like got like 7 nice things about it, but one really off thing about it, like you probably shouldn't eat it, right?
Yeah, like it looks great, but then there's like one green part on it or something.
Yeah, or at the very least, you should like focus on that part, right?
Yeah, it brings your attention to it, right?
Yeah,
isn't that? It's like a weird imbalance of energy in the world. I find that's like entropy. I don't know,
But yeah, certainly kind of like it leads to some difficulties in modern life.
Like modern, like the format, or like actual modern life. I don't know, because like it's like that entendre.
Yeah.
But okay. With your experience of going to a local game store, right? Of playing Magic, I've had good experience so far. Like, it's like pretty neat people. Maybe it's because it's Commander. I don't know, but so what stores do you frequent around in Vancouver?
Mostly just Stronghold, as well as Core Games. I also used to go to Connections sometimes.
Is that the one in Surrey? Or?
No, that's the one on
Main?
Renfrew.
Oh yeah.
And also can't remember the name of the one at Low Heat Mall.
TNN Games?
Yeah. And a long time ago, I used to go to the one at Surrey.
Craven?
Craven, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Has your experience, like, varied? I mean, I imagine it did, right?
Yeah.
But it could also just be that night, maybe?
Yeah, and, like, I've had a couple, like, a long time ago, I had...
In a galaxy far away.
Yeah, I kind of, like, had some... slightly negative experiences at Stronghold, which left me with a negative impression. But it's actually not too bad. It's actually generally a pretty good store.
I think so too.
Or maybe the people are just different now. But I think the environment is quite good. Surrey, I liked going there, but I think it's maybe not the best. I think depending on who you are. And also, yeah, there's kind of like the only time one of the only times I've ever like met someone who was, physically like smelled so bad I couldn't. Like if I was matched against him, I would have just left.
Really?
And I mean, maybe through no fault of his, like maybe he's got like a condition or something like
it's
that.
Possible.
Like there's
you
things.
never really know.
I never know, but certainly the stereotype is a lack of personal hygiene.
It's funny because we were talking about the Smash people before this air, but not to name any names or point out any people. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, like there's, yeah. I'm just wondering if this is gonna come back to bite me someday. But Stronghold's pretty good.
I mean, we just, Pat, like when you go to brackets, do you enter as your name or do you have a tag that you enter as?
No, I don't think anyone does that in Magic.
Oh, well, I mean, it could have been safe to protect one identity over the other. But anyways, well, hopefully not. Maybe no one will even listen to this.
Why? How many people usually listen to your podcast?
Personal amounts.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, generally pretty good. I think the one over at Brentwood has my favorite group. Very people who are kind of rare in that they're very like invested in the game. A lot of them are quite good at it. Mm-hmm. But everyone's generally like well mannered.
Oh, I think that's good.
And they don't, and some people get a little salty when they lose, but like not. They don't seem like they're miserable the whole time. Like some people win or lose, they seem like.
Yeah, so that's the thing that someone brought up to me. Dex SG, Dylan Blake. Well, I mean, yeah. He mentioned that he went to an FNM there, right, at some store, right?
Yeah.
And like when people would lose, it just like they would not like shake hands or eye contact, just like scoop and like, yep, that's it. No like fist bump or anything. Like, yeah, okay, and then that'd be it, right? It also brought to my attention that like some people like they do not want to interact or something, like like they don't want to play games and be like, hey man, you want to play a game? They're like, no. I'm like, what? Like, yeah. Is that true?
Yep, that's pretty common.
Like people just don't want to play games, or
yeah, they only like want to just play the tournament, I guess. And it's like
I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm not sure. I have no idea.
I mean, it's generally my preference to just like just play. Like I'm there. People come there for different reasons, and that's
of course
maybe not necessarily a bad thing. Like some people go there because they enjoy playing Magic, and some people go there because it's like kind of, and again, kind of speculation. I don't necessarily know what's going on in people's heads, but like a lot of things, like a lot of people play games just for their ego, right?
I don't know. Again, yeah, that's possible. I don't know if that's good or bad either. I don't know.
Yeah, or they play because they want to succeed. Like they're there for winning. They're there for
some kind of
that kind of
fulfillment.
Yeah, and there's lots of reasons you could do things. Lots of reasons to want to do different things. A lot of different things you can get out of it. And I think that's a positive thing about Magic.
I mean, I suppose. I'm not sure.
But yeah, certainly there are a lot of people like that. Maybe not a lot, but there are people like that in Magic, like there are in other kind of games and things like that.
Yeah, where they just like kind of like you say, they go there for a certain reason, do their thing. But it's just like in contrast to like the fighting game community, but like we're like, hey, you want to sit down and play some games? Like, yeah, let's play some games. Like, it's nothing on the line. We just have fun, right? I don't know if that was the same sense. Like, I had never met someone who said no to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't want to play fighting games with you. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Right.
Yeah. I definitely have that happen in Magic. Yeah.
But like, hey, you want to play the game? They're like, no, absolutely not. No. Right.
Yeah, I would say it's
to me that's just strange to me, anyways.
Yeah, you think you're there to play, but
yeah, because like to me it is a card game, right? It's like I just want to have fun, man.
Yeah.
And there are obviously sometimes there are some people who are just not having fun.
Yeah.
Like they're like, I was like, I can see it, like I can feel like.
Yeah, you just don't want to. Yeah, you're just not enjoying yourself. Yeah.
Like this guy just dropped 3 Phoenixes, and you're like, well, well, okay, let me see what I could maybe do out of this, right? And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know, but does that atmosphere predominate, or like...
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, it may be different, like, if you go to, like, an actual...
GP?
Yeah, or a larger event. But generally for these, like, F&M level type, there may be, like, 0 to 2 people who are like that out of, like, 30 or something.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's what I figured. Like,
yeah.
Because when I was there, I was like, yeah, people were just like, yeah, let's play some games. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's, it's not that uncommon, really. And I mean, there's other elements too, like, sometimes, like, for the very serious people, it can be an issue wanting to conserve your mental energy for later rounds. Like, it can be, like...
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Very draining. Like, even nights where I don't play any extra games by the end of the fourth... Like, by the end of the fourth round, I'm just, like, out of my mind making very simple, like, operational mistakes and things like that, because Magic is such a complex game.
Yeah, it gives, like, so many dimensions to it, right? But, like, when you're playing... Like, just, like, the nature of it, right? It's, like, you make a lot of mentally intensive... Like, you're very present, right? Yeah,
you use lots of different, triggers and obscure rules and timing things, and
it can make all the difference too, right?
Yeah, and, like, a lot of people, like myself, play relatively casually, as in not that often, like, maybe, like, once or twice a week at most.
Oh, casually. Whoa. What's that mean? I'm just kidding.
So, that, like, it's hard to... People who play a lot, like, the operation of their deck, they're playing Magic's more automatic, but...
What do you mean? Like, the deck is designed to be...
No, like they just... they don't have to think about how their deck works. Like, I have to, like...
I see. Okay.
Even after playing the deck, playing the card for so many years now, like, sometimes, like, I forget to do my Delver trigger on my upkeep and things like that before I draw my card, and that's, like, not really a decision you make. That's just the automatic thing that sometimes I forget when I'm really tired.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
A little reading. There's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
So, like, do you find that with those players of that experience, it's like, how often do you come across players who just, like, can just play out their deck just, like, kind of organically?
Not that often, actually. Like, I figured. I feel like
but that's kind of like a strange, like,
I think well, I mean, it's hard to say. Actually, I think in terms of things like that, specifically, like, execution errors, I would say that
execution in a card game, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's real.
It really is real, yeah. I would say that most people are generally competent at that side. That I play with. There's a couple people who don't really, like, kind of fuzzy on the rules, especially more, like, in drafts. There's kind of the even more, like, casual people, and
of course,
also it's like drawing from a whole set of cards. It's not their own deck. They're maybe not familiar with every single card.
Yeah, no, exactly.
No, most people usually are, but I would say it's more like people make, like, strategic errors more often.
Little intricacies, right?
More like the big picture stuff is usually people, I think, like, they're able to learn the execution with repetition, but they don't even know that they're making strategic errors in the first place.
And I see that's an interesting way to look at it, because, like, it's an analysis on, like, the level of play and, like, way beyond the surface, right? Like, you can... It's not so much decision making, but, like, when, like, the nuances of how a card functions, right?
Yeah, and it's truly very difficult in card games like Magic, because variance is such a large factor, or it can seem to be. And I mean, that's one of the things Magic's successful is because no matter how much you lose, you can always convince yourself it's because of error, random chance,
okay,
and not your personal error. So it can make it very difficult for people to improve, because it's a real skill at identifying when it is and when it isn't because of a personal mistake that you've made. Right, and I think that this is perhaps, like, this is a greater problem Magic, and perhaps a reason a lot of people don't want to play extra games sometimes is because depending on what kind of deck you can play, it doesn't really feel it can feel like you're not really playing a game at all. Magic can be a very intense, fun, interesting game full of complex decisions, or it can really just feel like you're just following simple instructions.
Yeah, you're kind of like going through the motions, right? Like your game plans are set.
Yeah.
Whoever gets their thing first wins, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's just you're just seeing whose thing happens
Who
first.
builds the fastest doomsday device.
Yeah, like I haven't really played a lot of Pokemon, but I think like high level Pokemon tends to be like this, right?
I imagine. Yeah, right. It's just kind of like some snowballing.
Yeah, you have a very efficient engine. You just search for the pieces you need.
With super tutors.
You just put them together, and then you just execute. The game plan you execute is just always the same. It doesn't matter what the opponent's doing. Right, and sometimes Magic can be like that as well.
I mean, yeah, because with Hearthstone, anyways. I know there's like sometimes there's a meta where it's just like you just go through your motions, right?
Yeah,
and that's I don't know. Maybe sometimes people like that. I guess
some people do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I don't find that's not. It's like something with fighting games. If you find a character who just kind of does one thing, but they do it really well and effectively, and that's all you do, you're not really interacting with the other character. It could be a fault of the game. It could be. Yeah,
I don't think it's ever as extreme in fighting games, but certainly you have flowchart characters, right?
Exactly. Like you're following a game plan to a T.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and maybe people like that, but I don't think that's not what I'm there for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find that like with I don't know, you went to like a GP, like the most like that one in Vancouver, right?
Oh, that was a while ago. Yeah,
it was
years ago.
I don't know if it brought up a whole bunch of like people internationally. Did it? I don't
know. I think there's a bunch of people from the States at the least.
Yeah, right.
I don't know about many people from overseas.
Have you? But I imagine you've mainly played local people. Like you haven't like met other.
Yeah, I don't go to many of the larger events, no.
Because they're really traveling, eh?
Yeah, or even the ones that are local. I just kind of like.
The face-to-face ones.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about going to one. It's just it's like a lot of time investment, and just like times I haven't really planned for. And it's also just quite like the and I'm also a little bit afraid of bumping into kind of like more of the characters we talked about. Like one time I did a game day one time, which is
a game day,
which is like an open tournament. It's sort of the lowest level open tournament you can play.
Okay,
but it was like it took like 8 hours at least. It's like long. It was like eight plus rounds or something like that.
What? At Stronghold?
No, I did this over at Connections.
Okay.
Yeah, and I played against some people who are just kind of like very miserable and some very unpleasant people. So I kind of like I don't really like care to play Magic with people like that. And I don't really get any that much extra enjoyment out of like playing for higher stakes or something like that. That's not really what I play it for.
What do you play for?
I think just the game itself. Like I enjoy the decision making of like the particular decks that I choose to play. And I enjoy the social element to some extent. Like I often
what social? I'm just kidding.
I often meet like a lot of people that I do like to talk to and hang out with.
Yeah, so like it's like you find people with common interests, right? Or this is a way that this is the common interest, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And yeah, I'm starting to make friends in the Magic community. Like I've kind of long time been on the fence if I even really want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an investment of some sort, right?
Yeah, and I kind of like don't want I kind of just don't really want a relationship that's like solely based on Magic. Because I find like when I've had Magic friends before, it's just kind of like all we talk about, even if we're doing something else.
Right, like you're bowling or something, and then you're like, "Hey,
Magic,
what do you think about the new set of Modern?"
Yeah, and it's like if we're in like mixed company, it's like not really a good topic to talk about with the people who don't really care, right?
I mean, I think that's like a different kind of social contract there. Like well, not necessarily a contract, but like it's like, hey, you're not with people with like the same crowd. You gotta be. I mean, you don't have to be flexible, but I don't know. It's just I know what you mean. Yeah. Consideration for the rest of the group, right?
Yeah.
And I think the bigger it is, obviously, there's a balance, right?
Yeah.
But you want to. It sounds like you want to associate with people who you feel comfortable with associating with. I guess, right? And is that like getting better at the stores or?
Yeah, I guess so. Sorry, can we take a break? I'm kind of like dying.
Yeah, sure. Let's just take a pause here. Yeah, we're back. So this is what we're talking about. Like, I just mentioned, like the Veil of Summer. Like, it's a 1 CMC card that does all those effects and draws you the card, right?
Yeah. So to reiterate here, Veil of Summer, essentially makes it so that your permanents on board, your spells on the stack, as well as you can't be targeted by blue or black spells opponents control until end of turn, and it draws you a card for 1 mana.
Is it instant?
Is it of course, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and it does all those things for 1 cost.
So so basically you use it in response to removal on your creatures, to discard targeting you, to counter spells on your spells.
And in the case of the Oko, it'd be like you protecting Oko with that 1 card.
Yeah. So you counter their possibly 2, 3, 4 mana spell with your one, and you draw a card on top of it, right?
And maybe protecting your Oko, right?
Yeah, and it also it specifically discourages like interactive cards, right? Removal spells, like
it's a huge deterrent, right?
Right. It only draws a card. It doesn't stop them if they're just playing a big monster or something.
No, because it's a spell. But I mean, still, like the cost. Is it 1 blue, green?
It's 1 green, yeah.
So it's 1 green does all those things, right?
Yeah.
But like, so like Hearthstone can always like, because it's a digital media, right? It can always change the cost. But like, what do you think would be? Is there any way to make Veil of Summer fair? Like, if you were able to change the cost or the effects, or
I think that this is actually like
the card.
A pretty big mistake that I find, especially like Magic's designers tend to make with Magic, is they're always trying to figure out what is the fair cost of something. Okay. But perhaps they should consider that maybe they shouldn't make that thing at all
to begin with,
right? Like, there's a lot of effects which are either overcosted to the point of being worthless, or if they're any good, it's a huge problem for the format.
Like Veil of Summer, right?
Yeah, and Veil of Summer, I mean, it's one of those where it's like, maybe you could make it more reasonably costed. Like, I think if you made it like a lot of the previous hosers before.
Hosers?
Yeah, like color hosers, what we call them. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Makes things fizzle.
Yeah, we've had sort of similar ones that were also 1 mana but didn't draw a card. And those are reasonable / see no play.
Okay.
So which makes me think that, like, there isn't really a fair way to cost this. Something that, the aim of the card is to give you both a tempo advantage, mana advantage, as well as a card advantage over interactive spells. Like, at the heart of the card, that's what it is. And I think that that's not something that, you should really be trying to do. It's like to
print, or
I don't think you should try to print that.
Is it so overloaded?
It's just not conducive to good gameplay, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see it. Like, is it like an expensive card, Veil of Summer? What was it?
I don't know. It's between $5 and $10, I think.
Oh, for standard, no. Yeah, I just don't like standard. It just, I don't know. I just don't find it fun. Like, or maybe because like the arena, right? Like, maybe it'd be more bearable if like you could like redeem cards that you didn't use, but you can't.
Yeah, the economy on arena it's a little bit I think kind of doesn't feel good. Yeah,
that's the way I feel. It's like it's a great game. It's like Magic standard. Like, that's awesome, right?
And the software works well.
Yeah, the software works well.
Ish, but it's hard to acquire the cards you want. It's unclear how much you have to spend to get those cards.
That's very true. Yeah,
you can't do anything with cards you don't want.
Yeah, but like, do you think that would make it better if you could like just like dust them?
Yeah, I think people would enjoy that more. Like, even if it was slightly more like expensive to acquire cards in the first place. Even like, I feel like just emotionally people would like being able to optimize their collections, I guess. To like do something and not feel like their prize is what they got out of a pack is wasted.
And I guess that's part of the grind, because like I find like when I if I play like Magic or whatever, like I only buy the cards I like want, right? Because like I find like in Arena, like everything is like based off the wild cards you get, and like you have to get packs, and like like maybe you might get that like questing beast you might need, right? But like you're still stuck to like I need like wild cards to get what I want, right? And that's what I hate most about that that game in particular. Whereas Hearthstone, it's like it's easy, it's really easy. Like you don't have to play 9 decks a season. You don't have to play 1 really. And then you can relatively easily build that deck, right? And that's just how I feel on that matter. It's just like, right. Going back to the idea of you said off recording, like the philosophy that a game should prioritize like being fun over balance.
Yes.
No, I mean like I said, like also like why bother playing if it's not fun, right?
Yeah, it seems like something that
enjoyable,
is obvious when you say it out loud. But I think part of the problem is that, especially in Magic, people tend to gravitate towards metrics that are easily quantifiable rather than are qualitative.
Like metrics as in like a way of measuring like the card or the game or the percentages.
Yeah, it's
or
like balance.
Okay.
It seems like you can objectively measure it by seeing what percentage of people are playing a certain card or deck or character in a fighting game, even though that is not necessarily directly indicative of balance itself, because there's lots of other reasons.
There's so many factors, right?
Yeah. But anyways, people feel like there's an objective reason, like, objective data. Everyone's very obsessed with
big data.
Yeah. But whereas something like fun, people dismiss it as like, oh, that's subjective.
It's not very objective at all. There's no way to measure fun.
Yeah, what's fun for me is not fun for you, blah, blah, blah. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean you shouldn't care about it, right?
Or you shouldn't care about fun, right?
Yeah, there's like this joke that social scientists love to tell.
Okay.
Let me see if I can try to remember it correctly.
She can deliver it properly.
So there's this guy walking home at night.
Okay.
And he sees a very drunk man stumbling around beneath a lamp, like the lamplight, right? And he goes over to the man and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm looking for my keys. Can you help me?" And so they both get down on all fours, and they're both searching around for these keys, right? And eventually the passerby says, "Well, we're not finding it here. Where did you drop them?" And then the drunk guy says, "Oh, over there in the bush."
Okay.
And then so the passerby says, "Well, why are we searching here?" and the drunk guy says, "This is where the light is."
What the? Oh, what? Oh. Okay, I find that funny, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to find it funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke, but it's kind of like the same thing as, like, people always want to focus on balance in games because they feel like there is objective data there. It's easier to see. There's a light there.
Okay.
Whereas trying to improve fun in games, it's difficult. It's subjective. It's hard to see how much fun people are having.
Right, because it's not necessarily like the most objective of things, right?
Yeah, but that's the important place you should be looking, even though it's harder. That doesn't change the fact that it's you shouldn't disregard it. Yeah, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, balance is not important. It's only important insofar as it enables fun, right?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing that I personally have with balance is that like I do prefer balance. I do. I like it's like, but not necessarily for the sake of data or maybe it is, but like or for seeing like for example like Samurai Showdown, top 8. I think it was like 6 Genjiros. I was like, come on, man! Like that's like yes, I like Genjiro. He's super fun, but like, come on, like that's not fun to watch. But also in the same sense that like I like to be able to pick a character or something I like to, play with, and have it be like remotely viable, right?
Yeah, I mean that can be part of the fun, is having a choice. Of
enabling
different
me
characters or play styles, right?
Exactly.
But it really, like they could balance every character by, making them the same, which is not fun. Or, they can make in another extreme example, they can make every character do no damage so that every round ends in a draw.
Yeah,
which is perfectly balanced, but again, not fun. Right?
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, I even argue that like very non-diverse environments can be some of the most fun. Like in Magic, sometimes you get some formats where there's only 2 or 3, like top decks, but
sure.
The gameplay between these decks is so deep and enjoyable that I think that in some sense that's more valuable than a lot of metagames we've seen in Modern, where you can play anything. You can play Elf Tribal, Graveyard Deck, enchantments, combo, anything you want, but the gameplay isn't very good because it's all people trying to like just ignore and race each other or find
get their thing going first, right?
Yeah, or like mulligan for your sideboard piece. Like, even though there's so many different strategies you can play, it's kind of not really that fun.
No, and I agree that it made like it's like you have a very engaging time with those 2 or 3 decks. Like they are the same deck, but like the games you have are very, they're essential. Like they're fun, they're good, right? As opposed to like having the situation where you're just like the stale situation of like, okay, you do your thing, I do my thing, and we're not really playing the game. And then this is like the same argument. I guess it's made for like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I don't know if you've seen it. like there's like, okay, let's like 4, 5 teams maybe even there's 3, right? It's like MSS, MSP, whatever. Everyone runs the same garbage,
I
right?
mean, people are still figuring things out about the game. Like I was watching Spooky.
Yeah, recently, right?
He was playing Jill or something, right?
Yeah.
Valentine's, like she's got like a
air charging stars.
Or she got like a infinite or
really
0 to death.
I mean, like everyone's got
that
kind of thing.
Yeah, but
no, but yeah, exactly. It's like it's being explored, right?
Yeah.
I think that game is terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible game.
Terrible game.
Like, balance is whack, game's broken.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the most important thing.
Like, I would never play it. Because I think, for all those reasons, because, like, again, for the same reason, like, the characters I play are terrible. I love Guile.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, come on, man. Like, who's gonna play Guile in Marvel? I mean, maybe there are people. But, like Jill. I like Jill. Or, like, I don't know, Dr. Doom, or I don't know, whatever.
Well, Dr. Doom is top tiers, you know what?
In Marvel 2, I don't know. 3, definitely.
3, yeah.
But my favorite character, like Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man.
Love
Spider-Man.
But why is Spider-Man never good? Right? Like, he's so cool. So that's the reason why I don't like. I mean, I like my characters to be able to stand a chance.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's also a balance that you have to kind of address, like the whole equity is not equal to equality kind of thing. Like everyone can have the same tools, right?
Yeah, yes.
That's probably the wrong quote to use, actually. But
yeah,
that's
but
like
I get what you mean. Yeah, it's like
that was the Street Fighter 5. Everyone has a V trigger. Everyone has a V skill. They're not all equal.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, like if it's way too balanced, it becomes like a stale situation. I don't know. Is that what you think?
Not necessarily, but yeah, it can be like oftentimes in order for things to be perfectly balanced, like it leads to a lot of more. The characters need to be more homogenous, or the decks need to be more homogenous. Like
maybe those are the easiest ways we know to balance things.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to have different strengths and weaknesses all be balanced against each other, but I think it gets a lot harder.
No, most definitely. As soon as you add more dimensions to it, it just becomes like more of like more interactions that you have to consider, right? And that's the thing in like how do I say it? Like in fighting games, when you like character viability is one thing, right? Like but and like balance is another thing, but like there's always going to be the situation of like tiers, like there always will be disparities, right?
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like I think there's always going to be a best character, a best few characters, like
or like even a best card, or like a deck. Yeah,
right? There's always going to be best deck, and I think more important than trying trying to accomplish the futile goal of making it so there isn't a best. Instead, I think game designers should focus on making sure that the most fun thing you can be doing is the best thing.
Oh, that's right?
Interesting.
Oh, that's so weird. That's like it makes so much sense, but like, well, because like you have different kind of players, right? Like spikes, right?
Yeah,
they want to win, but like, what if the good thing is like also just really fun?
Yeah, so then they'll do the winning thing, but if it's the fun thing, then everyone will have fun, right?
But then the problem is like everyone will just play those like that one character. So like, another balancing like kind of not necessarily, but like it could be the situation.
Like,
what if everyone just played Azrael?
Well, think about this like in Street Fighter. Like, who would you rather have be the best character, Ryu or Dhalsim?
No, probably Dhalsim.
Really?
I think Dhalsim's super cool.
only because he's not. Like, you're probably sick of playing Ryu all the time, but like, okay, or like I don't know, like Dhalsim's probably one of the fairer ones, or like it's like in MVC3, like you don't want Morrigan Doctor Doom to be the best strategy.
Yeah.
Right. You'd rather have.
It's good. But like, okay, I see what you mean.
Right, you want something fairer, something more fun to be the best strategy. Now
that makes that makes sense.
I think it's actually good if these niche strategies, like in Magic, for example, sometimes you have some people really just want to have an uninteractive combo deck.
Okay.
Right, where they just they don't care what the opponent's doing, but they just do their crazy. They just sit there for building like 5 minutes doing their crazy combo, right? And I think it's good if those players have something they can play. However, I don't think it's good when those decks are the best kind of decks.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. No, I agree. That makes sense.
Pretty much universally, what we want is maybe like a mid-range deck, or like maybe like like an aggro deck with some interactive elements. We want that to be the best deck, right?
I remember because it's like having those really, but in the same vein, you don't want that like kind of do their own thing to be like completely terrible and off-putting.
No, because one of the great things about Magic and fighting games, anything where you can sort of pick your own experience, is that you can
pick your own experience. I like that.
Right, and I mean this is something that the designers of Magic often say. It's not one game. It's just a set of mechanics which can be used to create many different games, right?
Is that what Mark Rosewater said?
Something like that, yeah.
That's crazy. I like him. It's funny.
And that's also
that's
something...
true, yeah.
Yeah, and that's also something I think is good to keep in mind during balance discussions. Everyone, something happens, everyone says, oh, this makes the format healthy, this makes the format unhealthy. But everyone has a very particular point of view.
Okay.
Like for example, when Hogak, a very... uninteractive graveyard deck, puts out a recurring 8/8 on turn 1, turn 2. That's very powerful, right? Fair decks get demolished by it because
it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's fast and you kill their things, they keep coming back. Slow decks get demolished because they die on turn 3 or 4 or whatever. However, when I talk to like Storm players, for example, they had a fine time because they're fast enough to race it. Okay, interesting. And no one's bringing hate for them specifically, right? For Storms. Sideboard cards, yeah. Oh. But it's very clear and easy for them to gain advantage over these graveyard decks by just bringing in their own graveyard hate, right? Oh. So actually, their personal experience was not as bad. But for someone like for playing a deck like I played, like a slower-ish interactive deck, and especially in blue and red that has no good graveyard hate. Yeah, the format was just unplayable to me.
When if you came across a deck, right?
Yeah, just loose. Just can't do anything.
And that's the kind of thing with I have. It's not like a gripe, but there's a thing like with. I guess it also carries over the fighting games, like. Yeah. With the issue of, I guess it's, I don't know if it's a balance thing, but it's a kind of a coverage thing, right? Like how you have a meta, right? Yeah. Let's say the meta consists of, I don't know, 60 decks, right? Yeah, yeah. Then you want to build a deck that you play, right? That you want to play, you want to have fun with. But what if your deck is just terrible against 59 decks? Or like if it's only, you have to consider like coverage, right? Like
Uh-huh.
for example, when I played ranked Hearthstone, which is only best of one, like
Yeah.
you never like I would have a deck and like yes, this is good against like 6 out of 9, but terrible against those 3, right? Like I'm still rolling the dice in terms of like what I match up against with, right?
Yeah.
And then my next point would be if you had a deck, like for example, this Hogak deck, which is like generally not a glove fits all situation, but a glove fits like many situations, right? The Storm was the only group that didn't have front, right? Where do you find like what are your thoughts on that? Like how is there a balance we need to have? Like we can't just have that one glove that fits all. But like is it problematic?
Well, I think it really depends on what kind of player you are. And personally, I actually enjoy narrower metas, as in fewer viable decks, because the choices you make are more meaningful.
Okay, like what do you mean, like deck building or?
Yes, like you know what you're targeting. You can expect to face certain things. You can adjust your deck accordingly. You can try to get an edge. But a lot of people, in the pursuit of balance, in the pursuit of diversity,
yeah,
right, which are things that I think they like because they can objectively measure.
Okay.
You when you do get formats which are so open that you can play anything, your choices become pretty meaningless because you have just no idea what you're going to face against.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So I mean, and these are not fresh ideas. Lots of people say these things, but it becomes really, it doesn't matter what you do with your deck. It doesn't matter if you try to target the best deck, it doesn't matter because you might not face it. You might
like there's a low chance of you doing so, right? If it's this whole open.
Yeah,
well, not necessarily, but
you might try to bring a bunch of removal for the best creature deck, but then you play against only spell-based combo and control and drawn and
it's useless, right?
Yeah, and that can just be up to your random pairings. Like you can see on either side of you, it's like the deck you wanted to face.
Oh yeah,
but you just happen to not get it, right?
So having like not necessarily a narrower, but like a more constrained environment in which to work with, right?
I think more structured at the very least,
or controlled or regulated.
Like I think the best thing for a format is to have a best deck that's very targetable, right?
Oh, okay, interesting. There's a lot of counterplay or whatever.
Yeah, you have a really good deck that a lot of people will. That's still good to play even if people know it's the best deck. But there are very obvious ways that you can get an edge on it, right?
And I think that happens too in fighting games where like you have not really. I mean, hard to say. Like Kid Goku in Dragon Ball is really dominant, and I don't know if there's an answer to that.
Yeah, sometimes you have in fighting games where you have a best character, but you have some strong counter picks, right?
Yeah, like Bullet. What
is Bullet? Oh,
at some point, I don't know. At some point, like Bullet was terrible.
Oh yeah.
But for some reason, she was really good against top tiers. For some reason,
yeah.
That's weird.
And so I think that you can kind of in that way create like a constantly self-balancing, evolving metagame.
Where kind of like there is a dominant strategy, but it is like there are answers to it.
Yeah, so you can actually kind of make the metagame like always changing if you create the right kind of ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, but is that like how do I say this? Like creating that ecosystem, is that done through introducing new sets or balance patches, or
I mean,
or is it through people like discovering things?
Both, certainly. Like I think Magic is, for starters, like too complicated, and it's and they purposely design it too open-ended. It's not like Yu-Gi-Oh where the archetypes are very like
set
clear. Yeah. But like a lot of best decks in Magic, a lot of the best cards, the designers actually didn't even intend to be competitive cards in the first place.
Such as
like Collected Company, for example. 4 mana, you look at the top 6 cards of your library, you can put up to 2 creatures with convert mana cost 3 or less onto the battlefield.
Oh, it's like a Protean Hulk.
Yeah, so they considered it to be like kind of random, like a random fun card. But it ended up being such a powerhouse when you build around it that it's fallen out of favor now, but it was once. Yeah.
But then you have stuff like Veil of Summer.
Yeah, which is like
Urza.
Whenever they try to make card's powerful, that's when you have mistakes.
Like Urza, Lord High Artificer?
Yeah. And
Is he a mistake?
I like Urza. I think, is he an overpowered card per se? Possibly. But I think what he does is good. Like, one, you need to build around him.
Yeah, you're totally good.
Two, he's a purely a mid-range threat. He's a 4-mana creature that he doesn't win you the game on the spot.
He doesn't.
You know, he's good because he's a value engine. So, you know, he promotes a deck that's slower and more interactive, and you can interact with via counter spells or removal. Like he makes interactive cards good.
Yes, yeah, that's
right?
true.
You can also, he's a mid-range, so you can also kind of go over him, and I think that's a really good safety valve for best decks. It's really bad when you have just the best deck is something that's just like blisteringly fast,
such as
like really
Hogak,
or you know, like a fast uninteractive combo deck, or
it just goes off.
But mid-range is good because there's a variety of ways you can go over, and to beat. So you have the mid-range deck, and then you have a greedier version of that deck, which beats it, and then you have an even greedier version that beats that, and up, and eventually they get greedy.
Yeah, you meet a kind of breaking point.
Yeah, they get so greedy that everything else starts being able to go under it again.
Oh, right? That's interesting.
So I think we saw this a lot during Constero Standard with you know, people you know, love to hate on Siege Rhino, but it was a good example of this where you know, base level people are playing Siege Rhino.
Okay.
Then, you know, up a step people are, you know, playing some bigger bombs. They're recurring it with Whip of Erebos.
Yeah.
Then they get even bigger. They're playing you know, Avatar of Soul of Innistrad, or Soul of you know, the various souls in M15.
This is like
6 mana value engines. They get even bigger. They're playing, you know, to beat those decks. They're playing Hornet Queens. They're playing the 7 mana Garruk. They're playing 8 mana Ugin in a deck with no ramp.
Oh my god!
Right. So what you have there is a meta that's constantly changing without needing anything new to enter into it.
Oh yeah, it's like it's there, right?
Yeah, so you're having constantly people greeting each other, you know, and then but eventually it collapses again,
like a bubble.
Yeah, and it starts building back up, and you have all these different ways people are trying to get edges on each other.
Oh, that's interesting. And you think that's like the most healthy form of development for a meta, I guess?
Yeah, and there's lots of room for like funny decks, because as long as your funny deck is greedy enough, it can beat the Siege Rhino deck, right? You have, you know, enchantment, the enchantment deck that tries to just make 1 billion angels off of Sigil of an Empty Throne. You have like a mid-range demonic pack deck. You have like so many different fun things you can do. So I think that's like a good model for a format.
Did that kind of fall off? Did that kind of
well, you know, it's standard, so that eventually works. But I think what you want to make sure you don't do, though, is like you want to also a reasonable upper level on the metagame. Okay. Right, like, you know,
for like the competitive aspect.
No, like in terms of going over each other. Like you also don't want the decks to be infinitely grindy. Like sometimes Pauper gets like this. Yeah. Where it just you know, it can be blisteringly fat. Like there's turn 2 kills in the format, of course, but
in Pauper?
Yeah.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, with like, you know, but it's not as common. There's like Tireless, Tribe, there's Infect. There's, you know, some janky combos. But you also have, you know, just really terribly like grindy, where people are just like looping. Yeah. Their flicker loops and stuff like that. That's also kind of like not that fun.
That's kind of what the what's it called? the
Astrolabe ban was about.
Yeah, Astrolabe, right? But also like I guess Tron could do that, kind of.
Tron is a different kind of problem, because it's
it's a different kind of problem.
It's a cap on. It's the cap. Like you can't go over Tron. Tron is the biggest thing you can do, but it's fast. It starts doing it turn 3.
Yeah.
So
all the pieces. There's
very little room for, like, you know, back in the Siege Rhino metagame, there's all these different levels of greed you can do.
Okay.
Tron makes it so that it's either you're Tron or you're not greedy at all.
What? Really?
Yeah, it's either you play Tron or you're trying to kill fast, right?
Okay.
And I mean, lately there has been like the Oko decks have. I think Oko's been a big recent mid-range decks have been more successful because it gives them a generally strong tool, but also part of it is one that can create a lot of attackers to attack Tron quickly.
Okay.
But I think overall Tron is, I know you're a fan of Tron, but I think it's very bad for every format it's a part of.
Probably. I think it seems pretty niche.
Right. It limits what can be good in the format.
Yeah, because it's kind of like one game plan. Like you just ramp like crazy and you just like
stuff,
it's
right? It's
well,
very
Timmy.
one-dimensional.
It seems pretty Tim.
Nothing wrong with liking a deck.
But I understand the complication though. Like this is all you do with Tron.
Yeah.
Like you just ramp, you play a little Drazi, it'll like do stuff, and then you might win.
Yeah, there's nothing that can compete with the ramping power of Tron. Like 7 mana on turn 3 with just lands. That's
you can just play anything at that point. You're like, I guess I win. Right?
Yeah, nothing else can ramp you that fast. Nothing else is as powerful. Tron plays the most powerful cards in the game.
And then I guess they don't print anything like it anymore, right? Because of the nature of it, right?
And also, it does it so fast, right? Turn 3, yeah.
But do you think like the recent Oko banning is that reasonable, fair, unfair?
Here's the thing. Like, I think Oko was really good for the format, but there's also the consideration that people just emotionally didn't like Oko so much.
What do you mean? Like, just feel bads?
Yeah, I think people just kind of got on the. I mean, it's a strong card.
Yeah.
It's very ubiquitous. Like, and here's part of the problem with. Okay, so so Magic posts 5-0 league results. So when you go 5-0,
okay,
they used to I think post like
5-0 as in you went 5 wins no losses.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I think they used to do is they used to post all of them or just a random selection.
Okay.
But with this data set, it gave you a more clear picture of what's good. You can see this deck's winning more than that deck. Mm-hmm. Now to make the metagame less clear to players, ostensibly, so they're slower at solving it. But I think it's really just to hide mistakes more.
Okay.
They made so that only unique decks are posted online.
What do you mean by unique?
Like, they have at least 15 cards different.
Okay.
So if one burn deck goes 5-0 and then someone else 5-0s with the same burn deck, it doesn't get posted twice.
Because they want unique.
Yeah, but what this does is that Oko can fit in a wide variety of decks, right? That are incredibly different from each other. So even if, maybe Eldrazi Tron is like dominating, it's like 20% of the metagame or something, and plays no Okos, there's a billion different Oko decks which are good enough to 5-0 at least once, but they're all different from each other. So there's like, you get 20 different Oko decks, even though there's like 100 Eldrazi Tron players that 5-0. They only get one posting.
Yeah. So
it really made Oko, I think, possibly overrepresented. I mean, the card is good, don't get me wrong. Like, it's possible that Oko decks were dominant, and you can see in small sample sizes in tournaments, it had a lot of good showing. Though again, that's also part of public perception, like how many people signed up with Oko because they thought it's the best, because they saw this huge results online,
Like, if I play this, I'll win, I'll do well, right? And it's just skewed in that regard, right?
Yeah, by sheer numbers, like, a lot of people play, like, blue-white control even when it's bad.
Okay.
So, and there's just, like, so many of them, like, some of them luck out into the top 8s of tournaments, so people continue,
luck out.
People continue to think it's a good deck. Like, I think it is a legitimately good deck right now. But anyways, so Oko ban, I think was not great for the format. But I mean, there's also comes back to fun, right? Like, even if people incorrectly believe that Oko is bad for the format, if it reduces their enjoyment of the format, like, arguably, maybe that's reason enough to get rid of him, even if, like, if
he was, like, anti-fun?
No, even if people just feel like he's not good for the format. If people feel bad when they see him.
That's enough to get him, like, whoop.
Yeah, that's possibly, that's arguably justification in and of itself. Even if he's had such a positive effect on the metagame.
In terms of like not just like the game, but like also like fun factor, right?
Yeah, I think he's made the games more interactive. You know, Oko decks, Oko doesn't slot into the turn 2 kill you decks. Oko is, like the all-in combo decks need all their pieces to be combo pieces. Oko's not a combo piece. He only goes, piece. Yeah, he only goes into mid-range interactive decks. He's a 3-mana card that doesn't win the game on the spot. He really encourages counter spells, removal, creatures so that you can hit them.
So like, so the problem with it was Veil of Summer.
I think there was no problem. I think Modern was in a really good place. Like, I think Opal probably needed to go for quite a while. But I think, Oko was fine. I think Karn was fine.
Is Karn banned too?
No. Karn's not banned, but
Lattice, right?
Lattice is banned, yeah.
Right.
And I kind of get it. It's like, I don't know. Like, I think, if Oko was around a lot, if Karn was around a lot for me, colors, like, it's also only a matter of time before, something else that's really good gets into Modern, and
just kind of
the power level pushes it. Like, the power level can only ever go up, right?
Because of you print more cards.
Yeah, and like maybe
more possibilities.
Not all of them will make it in, but some of them will, right?
Yeah. No, of course.
So this
is the nature of it. Right?
Yeah, the power is only going to go up. Like they're not going to,
or unintentionally, who knows?
Yeah, they're not going to print any new synergy cards for Oko. Like they're not going to print food for a while. And even if they do, it's probably not going to be Modern playable. Karn, they're always printing new artifacts, but I mean, he's kind of got everything he wants already.
Karn, this is War of the Spark Karn, right?
Yeah, he gets artifacts from your sideboard.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
But he's got I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not too sad he's gone. Like, he's kind of like a whatever card to me personally. I mean, I think he's actually probably still good
without Lattice.
Yeah, and kind of more fun now that he doesn't have the stupid lock. But
lock.
You've got other stupid art, like a staring bridge and like garbage like that.
And Blood Moon is not a stupid lock.
Yeah, Blood Moon I also think is stupid, but
fair enough.
It's such actually it's not that good of a card that it's not a problem.
That it warrants right.
Yeah.
Now this is always just kind of redirect the focus. That's always what always intrigued me about like your style of play. Just the way you disseminate information. Like let's go back to like the good old days of Smogon.
Oh yeah.
I remember you told me like you built that Haunch Crow with that one extra speed to outspeed. What was it? Or you built something to outspeed a Haunch Crow or something.
Oh yeah, no, it was probably my Rotom cut set, which was for RU. It was like my deck had a Haunch Crow weakness, so I made sure I think it like outsped Adamant Haunch Crow.
By like one speed.
Take 2 Brave Birds. I think I think that's fairly common among the higher level players.
Is it? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even consider myself, one of the top.
You were like what? Unlike Small, like top what 4?
Yeah, I mean, I got into like I had a couple of high peaks, like 2, 4, like in the top 10 a couple times.
But, exactly.
But I mean, depends what your definition of like top is, but
just the way to kind of like look at a situation, like a meta snapshot, if you will.
Yeah.
Analyze like, okay, like what is really going on here, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's easy to look at a meta and like a tier list and just like pick it and just play it and pile it and expect to do well. Right?
Yeah.
And there's like tools that let you do this, right? I don't know. Let's say you just can't think of anyone right now, but let's just say there's a character or a deck that's just like it's just super easy to play. I play it like even like someone like me could just like do well with it for whatever reason. Right?
Yeah.
But then like it takes I think a different kind of person to kind of analyze like okay like who really understands what's going on to kind of like pick it apart and like counter it, right?
Oh,
counterplay it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like to like kill bandwagoners, I guess.
Yeah. I try to play like very anti-meta, I guess.
That's literally what it is, right?
And there's a lot of people who try to do that, but yeah, I like to when I played Pokemon, I would always look at the usage statistics for the previous month, and I would in order try to figure out like how my team is gonna beat the most common Pokemon and most common sets. Like I think when you think about that's like I guess it's more work, but it's like a very logical way to go.
It is like you analyze like why is this dominant, right?
Yeah.
And what do I do about it, right?
Yeah, like rather than just play, the best Pokemon myself, which I'm not necessarily against. Like
Mega Rayquaza Dynamax.
I would try to find the thing that's like good against it.
There's nothing that can beat it.
Nothing, huh?
I don't know. It's like a Mega Pokemon who can Dynamax.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've.
It sounds messed up. I don't think there's a counter. I don't know.
Can you Mega Evolve and Dynamax?
Well, the thing is, like, the rule supposedly is like you can't Dynamax something that has like a held item or has a Mega Evolution.
Yeah.
But Mega Ray doesn't need any of those, right?
Oh, he doesn't need an item.
It just needs a move.
Oh.
And doesn't even have to use the move.
Wow. Yeah.
So like you could Mega and you could Dynamax it in theory.
Interesting.
And then you got 3 turns of like, I guess I win.
Yeah, I haven't really kept up to date. And like, I mean, Ubers has always been like that. Like,
is it like almost like anything goes, but not really?
I don't know. Like, I haven't really kept on one, but back before they had anything goes, like Ubers always had like very centralizing elements. Like, Kyogre was on every team.
Yeah. And
it was just like busted.
Yeah.
And then I think when they made Primal Groudon, he became like that.
Yeah.
As well.
He's ridiculous. Yeah. Kind of like those like cards you kind of auto slot. Because of like their auto like Sylvanas Windrunners or like Ragnaros. They're just so good. Why wouldn't you use this?
But yeah, kind of like back on topic. Like I don't think those are necessarily like bad things. Like if it makes the game better. Like if you always know that someone else is gonna have a Kyogre, so you make your own plan for it.
Yeah, I mean, if it opens you up to that, right?
Like it then you can really do some very like advanced counterplay. Like you tech in like a Gastrodon or something like that. Mm-hmm. Right, which like,
but who would do that though? Like, in your opinion, like,
I think people did do that. Like,
did they? I don't know.
Gastrodon had its own Uber's entry at the time.
Really?
Yeah, because it is actually such an effective counter to Kyogre when a lot of other things aren't. Because it's immune to water, and it's not weak to the usual coverage moves Kyogre uses. Mm-hmm. And it has like good special bulk, has other additional utility. It could be a stealth rocker.
It could be,
right? Yeah. So, and I think that's fine. Like, you can argue that instead of having a Kyogre on every team, maybe it's more interesting if like everyone's got different Pokemon, right? But
of course, diversity, like you say.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to what I was saying in that it makes your decisions less meaningful. It's like you can't really reasonably then put a Gastrodon on your team with the specific purpose of countering Kyogre.
It's more like if it's too open, it leads to this idea where like whatever you do doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just like
if it's way too open. Yeah. But at the same time, if it's way too constrained, it leads to situations where like I guess this is like what it is, right?
Yeah, it's like you do lose some of the fun of everyone. If there's one optimal team, every single person's playing it.
If everyone had a Kyogre or a Sylvanas.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Or if everyone had a Kid Goku on their team all the time.
Yeah, you kind of missing out on some interesting decisions of like you don't get the decision of what do I put in the slot because the slot's already
it's
taken.
Just optimal. Yeah, it's an auto slot, right?
Yeah.
And there's that has a balance in its own right?
Yeah.
I think that's always very difficult to address. Mm-hmm. But like I say, like it's like your style was just super interesting. Like I just thought that you thought of things that many people didn't think of. Like just so many non-conventional things.
Yeah, I guess so. Certain things, yeah.
But even in your decision making, like remember while you were talking about the DPs, the right round start, and like never do it again. But you said that was specific to the Glacier Man.
Yeah.
But like I remember also like when you play Pokemon, like you just like okay, like do this really big call out and just don't do it ever again.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because like it'd be like, and sometimes like when we were side by side and I watched you do it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it worked. Yeah. Like he's so scared of this thing now, right?
Oh yeah. That's my tactic in Pokemon is like. Because most people play safe at the beginning when they try to figure out, right?
Yeah,
just
of course.
Do a really hard call that's like not even really that worth it for the risk you're taking. But then the other person gets so mad that you like played them, but they spend the rest of the time trying to look for opportunities to
Get you
catch
back.
you. But then you just play safe for the rest of the game.
Oh.
And then you let them destroy themselves by playing unsafe. Yeah.
It's so funny how that's so true, though.
It doesn't always work, but in mid-levels, mid-elo, it definitely does. When people start to think that they're good, but they're actually not.
Oh, you kind of like exposing them, eh?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Because I remember like the thing that like John taught me, like it was like really weird, but it always stuck with me. Like around started fighting games, just jump back, do nothing. I'm like, oh my god, this is so like yes, like this works for me. As opposed to like round start, like you just do what's it called, Gustav Buster with Azrael. Like what? Why would you like? Oh, it's because it's good.
Yeah. And so my equivalent thing would be to call out the jump back.
Exactly.
And do just anti-air right off the...
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Right? And it would like kind of like, oh my gosh, this guy knows what he's doing. But like...
No, actually, here's the thing. It kind of has the opposite effect. It makes them think that you're a bad player that got lucky.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because they're like, why would you do that? That's so risky. Like in a fighting game, like, why would you go for like that big anti-air
when the reward is very slim, right?
Yeah, and if I did anything else, you would have died. Like... It's because if you really, really know the people you're playing against, like the type of the category of people they are, and you can figure that they've gone to that level where they always just do this jump back, right?
Or if it's like habitual and like you know that this is like this thing, right?
This absolutely, this doesn't work on like really good players.
No, it doesn't. Definitely
not.
not.
Mid-elo and this is the time that players are the most predictable when they start getting good, right?
The complacency.
No, it's just they've just learned like the basic parts of being good.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'll start with the same opener. Like I'm like, why does this work? I don't know why this is good.
Yeah, when they stop being random and they start doing the right things, but they do it very predictably.
Yes, and that's a good way of looking at it. It's like you're playing. Yeah, like that's right, but like you're like I know you're going to do that.
Yeah. Right. And I think a lot of it comes from they don't know why they're doing it. They just know they should.
Exactly. It's like an autopilot kind of like you don't understand why this is good, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like gripe like I have if I see like no, you don't like it's good, but like you shouldn't always like do it, right?
Right, because it leads to these situations where you can just be predicted.
Yeah, and I find like even just like when I was playing fighting games, like I just like sit back and did nothing. Like you could just see people hang themselves.
Yeah.
Right, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does that happen in Magic though?
Magic's not so much a Yomi based game.
Yomi. It's true, yeah.
But it can be in some fringe situations, but I find where you really get people, it's more of like a strategic role assessment type thing. It's like, have you ever read the article "Who's the Beatdown"?
No.
It's very
Who's the Beatdown?
Very famous in Magic, and I think a lot of other card game communities are also into it.
Who wrote it?
His name escapes me, but it's a very popular Mike something.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll show it to you later. But anyways, the gist of it is essentially very simply that given two different decks, one of them wants the game to go longer, and one of them wants the game to go shorter.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Like, if you're playing an aggro deck full of 1-cost cards, and I'm playing a ramp deck full of 10-cost cards.
Oh, okay, sure.
The later the game goes...
It's more in your favor.
Yeah. It's very intuitive, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's a lot of times where it's less clear, and depending on the situation, and then players, it becomes hard to assess in what particular circumstance does a player want to make the game end faster, and when does the player want the game to be slower. So, for example, in the deck I play, it's got 3 components. It's got creatures, it's got counter spells, and it's got burn spells.
Okay.
And these burn spells can target creatures or players.
Okay.
And sometimes in the deck, I shoot the face turn 1, and sometimes I save the removal spells. Even when the opponent's got empty hand, empty board, I'll save them forever until they play a creature.
And then you would get it.
And then I kill it. Yeah, but so this deck really rewards that kind of thinking. But a lot of people sometimes misidentify whether they want the game to be quick or slow.
Mm-hmm. To control the pace, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right? So a lot of people will use their burn spells on creatures when they should be saving them for face, or vice versa. A lot of players will take the wrong cards when they use targeted discard spells. They'll do, there's different ways you can play your cards, and people will, this is where people can make mistakes in Magic.
Yeah, it leaves you so much room for error, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I find interesting. It's so difficult to assess the situation, when and why do you do things, right? And I find that's what separates a really great player from what everyone else, right?
Yeah, and sometimes people don't even know that this is the question they should be asking. My deck is kind of a mid-rangey deck, but there's another mono red prowess deck, which is, at the face of it, one of the fastest aggro decks in the format. Mm-hmm. One of the smallest. All its cards cost 1 or 2 for the most part. Mm-hmm. Yet when I play against it, it took me a while to realize. I went through stages where, at first, I thought I have to control them. I have to kill their creatures and get into the late game. Mm-hmm. But it turns out they can kill all my creatures very easily, and they can draw more cards than me. So actually, they're a later game deck. I actually have to kill them first, even though I'm the slower deck. Mm-hmm. I have to kill them first. Oh,
that's interesting, yeah.
Because, they have actually more card draw than I do, and all their spells kill my guys as well. Because they also have burn spells, but they don't have, clunky counter spells like I do. However, but then, I went through another phase where I realized post-sideboard, I actually just need to take out every single one of my creatures. But it's kind of a different story.
Yeah. Because, it's...
Role assessment.
It is, yeah, and I think that's, super... And that's only just, maybe it's, one dimension to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even play Magic that much. Probably if you played Magic more, you would, understand so much more about this particular matchup, about other matchups.
And that's the thing, it's spending time, it's the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But it's just to be able to assess a situation and evaluate what's going on, all the decision making you make, Conan, as a person, it's just what? I could not fathom how to even where did you come up with these ideas? I have no idea.
I mean, I'm sure there's players who think about it more deeply. Like I said, I'm a relatively casual player.
No, but just not Magic, but it's everything, right? Because it carries over to your fighting game thinking, and your way you approach other things, right? That's the way I see it, right? Even when you talk about not even necessarily gaming, but perspectives, right? Just alternative perspectives that I would. I don't know. It's was it not a necessarily unpopular opinion, but just an opinion that's not immediately obvious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think a lot of people. I'm guilty of this myself too, but I think people often are concerned about the wrong questions. People.
I am for sure. I'm all the time.
Yeah, people always struggle over what's the right answer to this question, but they, it sounded kind of cliche here, but sometimes the question there's wrong. It's the question that's wrong.
It's there's a flaw in the actual question, right?
Yeah, and maybe it's the wrong question. It's not the question you should be asking.
And what you brought to me the other day was not all answers are binary, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's not two sides. There's often many sides, and often the two sides we have, the truth is not necessarily smack dab in the middle of those. It can be way off past one of them.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
They're both just different shades of wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's I guess it's more on the philosophical level, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, it's a challenge,
I
find. Okay, well, I mean, my computer's running out of battery, but I guess we can always pick this up another day.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for your time today. And
thanks for having me.
Should people find you on social media? I don't know.
No. Okay. I don't have anything, and also...
Likewise. Okay, then we'll leave it at that. All right, thanks a lot, Conan.
Okay.